Happy Valentine's Day, everybody. Yes, we do go ahead and broadcast on Valentine's Day. I have to tell you something comical about today. I've actually had some people that were scheduled for Valentine's Day and night couldn't make it, but you know what? They have a sweetheart, more power to them. But you know, in the broadcasting business, sometimes you just got to work on them special days anyway. So happy Valentine's Day. Hope you enjoy what we have to offer on Fire Up Michigan. With that said, I'll turn it over to Jeremy Ballrick for a quick 10 to 20 seconds. Go ahead, Jeremy.
We had a tragedy at the Super Bowl parade in Kansas City, and I would just like all of us to take a minute and give a moment of silence for the one who died and the 22 injured, 8 of them being children. I just think it's a tragedy. My hearts and prayers go out to the families of everybody.
Yeah, mine too. You know, and I have to say something. In my neck of the woods, a few years ago, with Marjorie Stoneman Douglas, when we had that tragic school shooting on this very day as well. So my heart will always go out to the folks in my community in Parkland about what transpired on Valentine's Day. So seems like we have a really these things occur, and it really is totally unfortunate. It really, really is. So, and that happened 6 years ago. So, while we were at Candy and I went to a funeral, and we saw Coach Aaron fight. One of the guys tried to fight it off. How many hands you got on there?
That was 9 years ago.
Stoneman Douglas.
Yep.
I think Candy mentioned 6. Either way, it's too long. Anyway, regardless, rest in peace, Aaron Feist. When we were at his casket, it was just unfortunate. So, but nevertheless, Stoneman Douglas, people in Kansas City, our hearts are with you. All right, let me go over the itinerary of the show. At the top of the hour, we're going to have the Sports Exchange. I'll be dedicating that show to Peter Ween, one of my mentors. And actually, this show is also dedicated to him as well as every show that we do here on the network. So, just a basic idea what our agenda is tonight. We're going to talk about former Michigan coach Jim Harbaugh. We're going to talk about a Lions transition from a different Lions team, and we'll talk about a couple of games that the Red Wings just played in. So I hope you can stay with us. So obviously the Sports Exchange, it'll be at approximately 9 o'clock Eastern time. With that said, let's get to it and introduce the crew. Well, our Wednesday Fire Michigan show would come from 2 individuals that are rightfully in the Mitten State. Jeremy Ballrick, glad to have you back on.
Glad to be here. It's always a pleasure to talk sports with you, gentlemen.
Thank you. Glad to have you. You've certainly been a big asset to the network, and we're glad you continue to write and social media and more or less make your broadcast appearances on schedule. Thanks. And next, George Eichhorn.
Happy Valentine's Day, everybody. Good to be back on, and let's talk some sports.
All right. Well, we're going to lead it off here with the Michigan Wolverines. Michigan Wolverines could not compete with the LA Chargers. Jim Harbaugh ends up signing 5 years for $80 million, but U of M offered Michigan 10 years for $125 million. Let's face it, 5 years at $80 million, not a bad payday. For half the time, a little less money, but then again, Harbaugh has made his fair share of dough anyways. George, what are your thoughts when you compare and contrast the two offers?
Well, I applaud, first of all, U of M. I mean, that took a lot of guts and a lot of savvy. Jim Harbaugh was demanding a lot, I know, and he wanted not immunity from prosecution. That's something that what he wanted was the university to back him up on any litigation that he faces from the NC2A. Even though most people thought he was going to go, I still got a bad taste in my mouth. I wish he would have stayed longer. I just feel like this is really going to be a difficult chore for Michigan next year. But that's for another show and another day as far as analyzing the next season, which is going to be a difficult schedule. Jim clearly had NFL and Super Bowl success in his mind, and that was never going to be satisfied. Let's face it, he went back to the NFL. So the opportunity came up for him, as opportunities we know, or at least temptations, the last several years when he flirted with other teams, Minnesota included. But I think that the university has nothing to be ashamed of. They tried their best. They gave him a nice package. They offered him a nice contract, and he still wanted to go back to the NFL. So I don't bemoan the fact that the U of M tried to put its best foot forward, Scott.
What about you, Jeremy?
I personally was sick of the NFL rodeo every offseason when he should have been hitting the recruiting trail, which is why he got busted for the whole texting people outside of the recruiting time, is because he spent his recruiting time interviewing with NFL teams. And the fact that he hired a pro scout, the same pro scout every year to go out there and set up those interviews tells me this was his plan the entire time. That once Michigan got a national championship, he was going to take whatever job was offered him.
Those are some good points. The only thing I'll say to conclude the topic really is he had won a national championship in college, right? So the only thing left for Jim Harbaugh to do was just chase a Lombardi trophy. That's it. I mean, you think about it. If you're able to win a Super Bowl and a national championship, you're in rare clarified it. Here you talk about Pete Carroll has done it, right? Barry Switzer and Jimmy Johnson.
Yeah, no, you're right.
So when you start to go into rare air, I think right then and there and he did what he had to do. He went to Michigan to try to restore some pride in the program, and his ultimate goal was to win the national championship, and that's what he did. I think anybody can ask a whole lot more out of him there. All right. Well, you know what? Let's talk about the Detroit Lions, and for that matter, let's talk about the British Columbia Lions. Yes, Canada goes far and wide. And here's the deal. Okay, the Detroit Lions and CFL star from the British Columbia Lions, Matthew Betts, will be 29 in March, who had a breakout campaign with a league-leading 18 sacks in 18 games while adding 44 tackles and 44 forced fumbles. Jeremy Ballrick, our resident NFL guy, break down the move.
I think it's a win-win move. And the reason why, with it being a futures contract, it doesn't hit the cap. His number will be so low, it's like he's not even on the roster. That being said, if this ends up being like Cameron Wake was for the Miami Dolphins, who was signed out of the CFL, which I think his ceiling is, because Cameron Wake did the same thing his last year in the CFL before he became a Miami Dolphin. He was the defensive MVP of the CFL. He led that league in sacks. He led that league in tackles for loss. He also had 4 forced fumbles and 5 passes defended as a defensive end / linebacker at 6'4", 253. And if you go back to his scouting profile from 2019, when the Chicago Bears drafted him in the 7th round,
Right.
it said he has an excellent bend and a great get off. He uses his hand pop well to accentuate his near flawless spin move. That was in his scouting report, and he fell all the way to the 7th round because he came from a small school.
George?
Yeah, I was curious to see that Lions have looked in an area that they don't look. The Canadian Football League, and I know we've talked about it on this show several times. So I was really pleased, very pleased when I heard the Lions going after the BC Lions. And this kid's got a lot of potential. He's not a kid anymore, but he's got a lot. And I'll tell you what, with Aiden Hutchinson, if this kid has got the desire and the excitement and the skill level that this is a great move by Detroit. And like Jeremy said, it's not really costing them, as far as the cap and the salary hit, because you're right. They got him on that futures. The futures kind of roster prospect, and that's good. That's good. And you know what? I'm for these guys to get a second look after they play in the CFL, because let's face it, there's a lot of guys for whatever reason couldn't make an NFL roster, but they're still performing well in the CFL. And we even talked before about the USFL and the other leagues, the XFL,
Right.
and some of those guys getting like auditions over there and then at least getting a look-see or a tryout in camp. So I'm all for this. I think Brad Holmes and Dan did a great job for outside the box, so to speak, and finding this Matthew Kidd. I mean, I just think it's a win-win for Detroit right now. We'll see how he pans out though in the training camps.
George, you know what you did? Great minds think alike. This has Brad Holmes written all over it. I don't care how many front office people you lose everybody else. And I'm not going to get into the most recent front office guy that went to Washington. I have no time for it tonight. But this is Brad Holmes written all over it. This guy is what, the executive of the year, from what I understand. My goodness, we talked about it a week ago. This guy's an Einstein. Brad Holmes will get him in Canada. He'll find him in Japan. He'll find him everywhere. It doesn't matter. This guy is an absolute genius. For all those individuals that think that, wonder if the Lions had a Cinderella year, no way. They finally have a guy confident in the front office to be able to look like Red Auerbach, for crying out loud. So, yeah, this is Brad Holmes. There's nothing wrong with the Canadian Football League. We can talk about a lot of the players that went to the CFL, came back to the NFL, did well. Warren Moon, okay, would be one example. But then again, you could go over a million examples from the CFL. Lately, a lot of the publicity has gone to the United Football League, at least the new United Football League, because you have XFL and USFL guys coming on. But there's nothing wrong with going to Canada, especially if you look at the dimensions of the Canadian Football League, and most people really don't even understand it because it is a much bigger field compared to the regular NFL. You can judge talent a lot better there because you have more agriculture, to look at, and you can judge speed and a lot of the other intangibles. So, yeah, this is Brad. I'm glad the Lions went to the other Lions to get it, and the Canadian football, they can go anywhere. This is just so fun to talk about because it's British Columbia Lions and Detroit Lions. It's all it is. It's fun for guys like you and I and Jeremy to talk about. Go ahead, Jeremy. Want to add something to it?
Yeah, and the other thing you have to think about, you mentioned the bigger field. It's 5 yards wider, 10 yards longer, and the end zone is even 2.5 yards deeper. But if you're talking, they also do not allow the defense within a half yard of the ball, and they're actually a yard back from the line of scrimmage, which means that should be an advantage for the O-line to be able to get set in their blocks better. And this guy had 18 sacks, and he's got to cover more field if there's a running quarterback that breaks containment, which means his stamina should not be an issue in the NFL.
Well, you know what, Jeremy, really, with all due respect, pal, you did say a mouthful because you got 18 sacks in that big field. You can get 18 sacks anywhere you're doing good alone in that field, Rod.
For sure.
I mean, there's a lot more ground to cover. I mean, that's what we both know. And that's why I think the Canadian Football League tends to become underestimated because a lot of people like going there or they don't. But it's an opportunity to play pro football, and it's an opportunity to get on film. And that's the people have to understand. Fans, as you get more, it's a good league. It has been well over 100 years, so can't be that bad. I know COVID-19 wrecked every football league on the planet, but they're still playing ball north of the border. So, I think I love when I saw this move. There's no question we were going to talk about it tonight. And yes, as I alluded to moments ago, okay, the fact that you have the British Columbia Lions and the Detroit Lions in the same show. Now, I've been to Vancouver before, and let me tell you one thing about Vancouver. I saw a Canucks game there many years ago at the Pacific Coliseum. It's one of the greatest cities, most beautiful cities I've ever been in. It really is. Stanley Park out there and everything about it. Vancouver, the only reason why nobody talks about it is because it's way on the West Coast. But if you ever get a chance to Vancouver, do it. All right. Final topic of the night, because obviously we have a busy agenda, is we're going to talk about the Detroit Red Wings, okay? We're going to talk about a tale of two games for the Wings. They had a 4-3 win over the Vancouver Canucks on Saturday with Jake Wallman scoring an overtime winner off a penalty shot. But then last night, Billy Husso gets injured with a lower body injury in an 8-4 loss. Poor Alex Lyons, the guy's been working his tail off, has to deal with 6 assists for Connor McDavid, and he gave up 7 goals. Some Alex Lyons to me is a Purple Heart, whatever. He's got the heart of a champion. I felt bad when I heard that he gave up 7 goals. He's the reason the Red Wings are still in this playoff hunt. Anyhow, so George, give me your thoughts first of all about the tale of the last 2 Wings games.
Well, Scott and Jeremy, of course, everybody was excited about the 4-3 win over the Canucks. I mean, first of all, you'd rarely see a penalty shot in overtime and determining that game. And Jake Walman has been such a great addition for Stevie Yzerman and the Red Wings. I tell you, every time I see this Red Wings team out there, it's mostly positive. You got guys that you picked up in the offseason. He signed free agency, a whole bunch of them at one time. Steve Yzerman knows what he's doing. And, I know he's not, he's not media friendly. He's a reserve guy. You don't see him in front of the microphones all the time. Like you don't see, Brad Holmes talks to the media way more than Stevie Yzerman does. All I'm saying is that, that penalty shot to give the Red Wings that 4-3 win over a very, very good and talented Vancouver Canucks on Saturday was fantastic. Now, you mentioned about the loss. I mean, they had a couple extra days to get ready for this game, and the wheels just fell right off, or the wings, we could say, fell off. And the fact that Husso was coming back and now he gets hurt, that's not good because they wanted him back, they wanted him healthy, and then all of a sudden he has that injury, and then the only thing I could say is they just piled on. The Edmonton Oilers just piled on Detroit and just buried them. That's not of Detroit this year, giving up that many goals. And like you said, Lions has done a good job in between the pucks. I'll just hope that they can battle back. They got a tough road trip. They got to go play Vancouver now, and I think that and then circle back and play Calgary, and then they got to go back in Seattle. It's a stupid travel schedule that they're not doing back to back in this province of Alberta, but it is what it is.
Yeah, I know Ken Holland used to talk to the media a lot. I used to see him all the time. But, Steve Yzerman has a different way of doing things. And he wasn't brought in here to win a popularity contest for the media. He was brought in here to take an original six franchise and get them back to the playoffs and keep them sustainable. So, yeah, sure, we'd like to hear more from the guy. But nevertheless, he wasn't hired there to stand in front of a microphone. He's standing there making moves, and that's exactly what he's done. And we'll see whether the Red Wings can at least get a wild card to break that 7-year playoff drought. Okay, Jeremy.
We've seen this before with goalies when they're supposed to have their day of rest and someone gets injured and the other goalie has to come in. It never ends well because they're rusty. They've been sitting on the bench. They're not ready to go. They only got their little 5-minute break that they get to warm up a little bit and stretch before they get in front of the goal to face the other team. See, you're not as limber, you're not as loose, you're not warmed up, and you're literally playing behind the 8 ball as a goalie. It's the same in any sport. If your main guy that's your defender gets hurt and you have to put somebody that's on a rest day in, they're not going to play well. I don't care what the sport is. So Alex Lyons, prior to this, has basically been standing on his head, doing the splits, anything he can to keep that puck out of the net and doing a very good job of it. He's actually, if you look at his save statistics other than last night, it has been on par or better every night than Husso. So I think he is the goalie of the future. And I think Husso is the bridge gap goalie because Alex Lyons looks like the real deal.
Well, Alex Lyons has played himself into the lineup because James Reimer got hurt and then Billy Husso got hurt. And who do you have left? Alex Lyons. So when you talk about a guy that was acquired by a free agency, the Florida Panthers, he did well with the Florida Panthers. And all of a sudden, he's been a rock here. I know the Red Wings have some goaltenders in the farm system, but expect Alex Lyons to be wearing the wing wheel for a while. I think he is another mastermind and move by Steve Yzerman. So no question about it. He's done outstanding. Let me point out a couple things here, by the way, that Fire Up Michigan is being broadcast around the world. The audio version of Fire Up Michigan can be heard on iHeartRadio, Apple, Spotify, Google, wherever you get your podcast. Please hit the red subscribe button on YouTube, South Florida Tribune. We're striving for more subscribers. Please also comment, like, and share the broadcast. Want to be a guest? No problem. Participate in the chat room or send your topic ideas to southfloridatribune@gmail.com. If you want to advertise cost efficiently, give me a call at 954-304-4941. We broadcast live on Facebook, LinkedIn, Twitter, and YouTube. Our website is www.southfloridatribune.com. Our Twitter/X is at Tribune South. Candy Ebling is behind the scenes, comes on the air when we need her. More power to her. Does a masterful job with the website as well. So also I have a book out there called Lessons from the Microphone, Tuning into the Enduring Wisdom of Visionary Leaders. Pretty much old school media versus new school media. But why should you buy the book? If you want to learn a little bit about the media, that's one way to do it. Or if you're a young aspiring podcaster, you can learn about the ability to sustain yourself for a period of time with content and so forth. And it's available on Kindle and Amazon as well. So, so I put a lot of time into the book. I only put about 10 to 12 pictures in there and put more content in there because I want people to really read this thing because it's a good learning tool. It really is. I mean, there were so many stories that I left out of it that I didn't need to, but that's okay because you know what? I'm going to write a part 2 in it. And when I do, then I'll be able to fill in those gaps. But having the ability to fill a life writing a book meant a lot. But I have a lot more things that I plan on doing before this year's all said and done. And that's continued to grow our network in conjunction with the good folks over at Sideline Sports, who are really great partners for us as well.
Yes.
We're all too familiar with. And bear in mind that the Fire Up Michigan crew will be in Metro Detroit during the NFL draft. Jeremy Ballrick will be part of our coverage. He'll actually probably be part of our coverage, though, when we broadcast over at the Black Rock Bar and Grill corporate headquarters out in Wixom, Michigan. I'll probably have Jeremy penciled for one show one day. I don't know yet. So a lot of that stuff will be determined as we get closer to it. Everybody's so hungover from the Super Bowl. But come on, folks, the draft is 70-some days away. So right before you turn it, you have spring training opening day. And guess what? I'm heading back to Motown not only for that, but to promote the book as well. So, and see some family members as well. One guy who I'm really particularly looking forward to is a guy by the name of Gene Ryson at the Highland House. And I do plan to make my way over there one time to get him a book. I have a good story in there about him. And of course, a lot of the other individuals in town. I try to get to Detroit as often as I can, but my responsibilities in South Florida are pretty high, and therefore I get there when I can. So it's going to be a fun trip. I'm trying to find out who's going to be part of our team there. And Jeremy Ballrick, as of tonight, and I said as of tonight, will be added in some way, shape, or form to that broadcasting team. I just don't know exactly where he's going to be at the moment. Then again, I'm sketching out the schedule, so to speak. So, Jeremy, congratulations for earning a spot on our team. We really appreciate it. You've worked hard on social media. You've accepted coaching, and that'll be your reward. And Jeremy Ballrick is hoping to also join me at the National Sports Media Association out in, I believe it's a 2-day event on June 30th and July 1, 2 days. And he'll have an opportunity to show how he's progressed with us as well as his own brand. And George Eichhorn, well, wherever I go, he goes. What else can I say? So
yeah, I wanted to throw out one thing. Congratulations, Jeremy. You know, you work so hard, and we're so proud of you. We really are. I'm glad that our paths cross, and your coverage of the Detroit Lions has just been phenomenal, and the whole league, not just the Lions. But congratulations, Jeremy.
Thank you so much.
Yeah, you worked hard. You know your NFL stuff. Jeremy's accepted roles to the company where I've had him and Candy Ebling take the lead on the Fire Up series. Between Fire Up itself and whatever Fire Up show he's asked to come out. Of course, the only one that Candy isn't involved in is this one, Fire Up Michigan. But other than that, he's taken the lead and he's been a complimentary piece. And I like the busted shots that he goes from Candy's Country Club to the Meat Grinders. So I'm going to take a page out of Mark Harmon's head. If you don't do anything wrong, right, if you make some mistakes, I'm going to slap you across the head like Mark Harmon does to all his people because I am the boss. But hopefully you won't get slapped across the head too many times because you made your mistake. So I have to pat you on the back instead, but you'll take it either way.
That being said, I do want to update you. I have confirmed that I have tickets to day 1 and day 2 of the draft. So I will be attending the draft for the first 2 days. The third day, I'm not so much interested in watching, even though that's where you get your rank and file and find some hidden gems. But I really want to be there. I'm still hoping I get that little press pass to be a part of Media Row down there and actually talk to the draftees, because that will be so much fun for me with my first draft in attendance. So if I can get that, that's a win, win, win. Just like the ceiling for Matthew Betts, is Cameron Wake 2.0. And the reason why I mentioned that is because when he came over to Miami those 2 years, he led the league in sacks before he had his injury. And then after that, he basically was regulated out of the league back to the CFL. And that's how it's a win-win on this signing. Because if he performs to that level, that means he's going to get extended and have a contract and be here for a while. And we'll have that other bookend everybody's been wanting opposite Aiden Hutchinson. If he doesn't work out, we let him walk away. We're paying him $350,000 or $400,000 the next 2 years to go back to play it in the CFL.
Right. Okay. Well, you know what? With that said, since you're talking anyways, why don't you go ahead and let everybody know how they can get a hold of you?
Well, right here, he just mentioned it. I'm part of the whole Fire Up series. Fire Up Michigan, Fire Up on Thursdays, and then our Fire Up Sundays, which is kind of like when there's football, it's a pregame show. And when there's not, we just talk about various sports throughout the league, just whatever the top 3 news stories are going on, whether it's women's basketball, men's basketball, hockey, soccer, goal. I don't care. I'll talk about it because you know what? Sports is fun.
Well, you know what? Even,
Oh,
yeah, go ahead. I'm sorry.
You can also find me on the SouthFloridaTribune.com, where you'll find my writings under the Motor City Tribune heading with the such authors that are next to me in Scott Morganroth, the Motor City Madmouth, and George Eichhorn, SNG Sports, or Sanji Sports at 99, if I remember right on Twitter.
Don't worry about it. It's not like you're going to get in his doghouse or messing it up. He probably doesn't know what it is either. So don't worry
You
about
can also find me on this channel any night Scott needs me. It doesn't matter if it's the Fire Up series or not. I'll join in whenever he needs it if I'm available. And I also have my shows. I have a morning talk show now called Lions Talk with Smoke and Jeremy B. and Von Doom, which is my co-host. He's a New York Giants fan, but he's also a pseudo Lions fan, mostly because of me, because I made him like him by busting his chops when the Giants started being bad again. And you got my show, the primetime show, which is kneecap biting with the Motor City Lions, and I'm going live shortly tonight.
Very good. Well, like I said, you and Candy are enjoyable to watch. I'm glad that the two of you have formed a partnership, which has been really entertaining and enjoyable to watch. And I know you're going to continue to work diligently to build that up as you already have to begin with. But that said, I'll turn over to Eichhorn. Go ahead. Who, by the way, gets to join me in a little while at the top. Go ahead, George.
Yeah, I've got the book. I've got a book out there, and I got the young Scott Morganroth photographs in my book, and with 2 greats of the sport, Jimmy Connor and Muhammad Ali. I mean, 2 all-time Hall of Fame greats in the book itself. Ernie Harwell, of course, George Kell, and Bruce Martin and Bud Lynch. There's such a great history of announcers. Van Patrick, the Lions, and I just hats to Dan Miller. What a fantastic year you did, Dan. You and Lomas Brown on the broadcast crew, and just a terrific year for that. So I write also for the Tribune under the Motor City Tribune, and at the end of my columns, you'll see a link there to take you to the page where if you're interested in looking at or buying the book on Amazon.com. You can reach me at gicorn@yahoo.com. You can find me on, I've been on Inside the Skin before. I've been 108 Stitches Baseball, Fire Up series, and Pundits Pundit, the Sports Exchange. Just a great lineup that we strive for here at the network. And also Sand G Sports 99 is my Twitter handle. So looking forward to being part of many shows here. And Scott and I go back plus years. So got a great rapport going on. And Jeremy, you've done a great job. So we're out there, man. We're doing a great job trying to get you guys all the sports news that you'd like. Good evening from Robinson.
John Robinson is a
John.
longtime fan of mine. He's the one that coined the Smoking Jeremy B nickname while I was at the Detroit Lions on the prowl.
Great stuff, John. That's your contribution giving this guy a name. Well, with that said, on behalf of Jeremy, George, myself, and Jeremy does get to be with 2 authors, not the worst thing in the world. Maybe he authors a lot of columns. We'll see if we can ever get him to book material. But nevertheless, that concludes this edition of Fire Up Michigan. Strong possibility to do it. The 3 of us will do it again next Wednesday, unless the Motor City Madmouth show produces a guest. Your Wednesday lineup will either consist of the Motor City Madmouth show or Fire Up Michigan, one of the two, but we'll just have to play it and keep you posted every week and it'll out. So for the final time, on behalf of George Eichhorn, Jeremy Ballrick, my name is Scott Morgan, Roth Motor City Madmouth, wishing everybody a happy Valentine's Day. Once again, our heart sympathy goes out to the folks in Kansas City, as well as those folks here in Parkland, Michigan, Marjorie Stoneman Douglas. Good night, everybody, and we'll see you at the top of the hour. Tribute to Peter Wayne on the Sports Exchange. Good night, everybody.